Hello, Denise and I have a new thing to talk to you about, and it's called Instructional Supersystems Engineering, or ISE. It's a new concept that we've been batting around, and we'd like to see what you think of it. And if you would take the time to comment or email one of us or LinkedIn or whatever you think is the easiest for you. We're just tossing this out. And Denise, I know that you've looked at all this stuff too, and I don't know, I think it's kind of cool.
I do too. So Chuck, when you first approached me with, what do you think of the words instructional supersystem engineering? I thought, what is Chuck up to? Where is he going?
Absolutely no good. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So the marketing person in me jumped on search engines and all sorts of things.
Yes,
and I'm like, wow, it's really a thing. Instructional engineering is a thing. And it is a very strong, from a marketing standpoint, very strong keyword that I discovered that I am really interested in using. I love the word engineering. I feel it brings a level of professionalism that is scientifically based. And so I know you're going to go into a little bit of that as I advance these slides.
We're going to go through this, but I think the important thing to remember is there's nothing wrong with ISD. There's nothing wrong with being an instructional designer. I think what we are proposing here is that we are much more. And the trouble that we've had for the last 60 years is trying to explain who we are is that we're using a wording that's not really explanatory or at the level at which people have any confidence in it. And I think as we go through this, let's see what you think, but I think that there's at least a place for this. So why the new name? Anybody who's an instructional designer will tell you that nobody knows what instructional design is. And as we found out, there are literally more than 1,000 titles that actually are instructional design work, but they're not called instructional design or they're not called instructional designer. And even though there's a plethora of jobs out there for instructional designers, I mean, they honestly can't find enough people to fill these positions. I don't think it's explanatory enough in the sense that how do we explain what we do? So I don't know. I mean,
I agree.
You're new to this, but what did you think ISD was before you went into a graduate program?
Exactly. I will tell you, because I work at UMBC in the marketing department, I've marketed the Learning and Performance Technology program, formerly known as ISD at UMBC, for 14, going on 15 years now.
Yeah, you're right at 15. Yeah.
And it took me a while to understand what it was exactly, what ISD really meant. And I have a funny little anecdotal story. This weekend, I went for a walk with some friends that I haven't seen in a while, and I said, "Oh yeah, we were talking about what we're all up to." You didn't dare tell them what you were doing. And I said, "Oh, I'm in graduate school right now, and blah 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 blah." And they're asking me, "What am I doing? What am I studying?" And I used the term instructional systems design. They had no idea what I was talking about, and here I was just explaining to them the aspect of ISD that I wish to be in, which I really love the analysis part and I love the design part. So they were like, okay, I think I'm getting it. And I said, what if I said the word instructional engineer, where I actually take and I engineer programs and courses. And I could see that like little light bulbs are going off in their head. They're like, oh, okay, wait a minute. I think I understand. So it was interesting, the timing of that conversation.
It's funny like that. And when I started poking around, and to be honest, there's someone who's written a book about instructional engineering. It's a gentleman from Quebec, I believe. And I will give him credit for having the book, but it's not about ISD. It's so much as about online learning and different things. It's all important stuff. So this is not something we have created. This is something that's existing out there, at least in terms of the instructional engineer part of it. And as we go through the slides, I think you'll see where the super system stuff comes from too. And instructional designers and engineers. And I recently looked to try to find out what the 10 most up and coming jobs are. And 9 of the 10 had the word engineer in them somewhere. There's something about the term engineering. There's something about the field of engineering, no matter what engineering it is, just the fact that it seems more professional. It seems more technical. It seems more like a science. And I think many times instructional designers are seen as, I don't know, liberal arts majors or something. And what we do is PowerPoints, which of course is not what we do. But this whole notion of we can't really capture what we do. So Gosh, engineering is where it's at, and we are by any stretch an engineer. So complexity of the work. Super systems, if you think about it, if you've never been familiar with the term super systems, it's this notion of it's more than one system. And when you're an instructional designer, you're working with 5 systems, 10 systems. I mean, think about it. You've got the instructional system. You've got subject matter experts. You've got media. You have got all kinds of things to think about in your population, which is a system. You have to think about how to do mastery. You have to think about how to implement. You have to think about all of the other stuff that goes on with this. So we are not a system. We are a super system. We are a system of systems when we do this work. And I think that's important.
Yeah, and it has a really nice ring to it. The fact that it's super systems, it just gives you that notion,
I think we need T-shirts, like with a big S.
Yeah, right. Absolutely.
Oh, yeah. So all of you have been waiting for merch for the channel. You're going to still be waiting, but that's one idea that we have to throw around a little bit. So one subsystem combined for the purposes. Okay, so we have an instructional super system. That's what we do. We're engineering super systems in training and education, which is instructional. I don't know. Seems kind of right out there. So we work with these subsystems: populations, content, learning transfer, instructional systems, technology, SMEs. The list is endless. We could just go on and on. I think the case is made for this being a super system.
Before we go on to the examples, I think people watching might be wondering, okay, so what does this mean? You're changing the name of ISD? You're changing the name of your channel? What does this mean? And
no,
it's really...
I think I don't know what it means yet. And I think that's why we're throwing it out here, is this is a channel where we're honest. We don't pretend to be something we're not. We don't try to portray ourselves as anything but people that work in the field and study in the field. So I think whenever we have an idea, I think it's fair to throw it out to everybody and let them comment on it. And I think the beauty of this is, I know that people like you this weekend can't explain what you do.
Right.
And I've had the standing joke in my classes for 30 years, telling my students, never tell people you're an instructional designer, especially people in your family, because they will just politely nod their head and go on and have Thanksgiving. And it's not, doesn't work. But if I tell somebody I'm an instructional super systems engineer, or I'm an instructional engineer, or I'm a super systems engineer, they're going to look at me and say, well, that's pretty cool. Explain to me exactly what this engineering system stuff is all about. And I honestly believe it's more explanatory. It's more descriptive of what we actually perform. So when you look on the engineering side, and I did some research on what people consider engineering and how you can be considered an engineer. And when you do the things that are on this slide, so planning, that's all we do is planning. Organization, we organize all these super systems. We manage the process. We direct the process. We coordinate with SMEs and other people that do work for us, photographers, videographers, anything else. You have to think about strategy. Okay, what's our strategy? That's our lesson plan. Okay, here's our strategy. This is what we're going to do. This is our hypothesis. Tactics. Yeah, we're very sneaky. We have tactics, and if you're not in the field, we'll never tell them to you. It's our secret handshake, but we do have tactics. And execution. We always deliver a product. Instructional designers, in the end, whether you're just doing an analysis or whether you're putting the whole program together, or you're sitting there by yourself putting together a class for a community group, you do execution. So I think by anybody's standards, we can look at this and say that we have an argument for saying that we are engineers. So what do we call someone that does this work? An ISE, Instructional Supersystems Engineer. And that's what I'm going to start calling myself. And I may get a hat and a T-shirt, not just an S, but I may have this whole thing on there, because I think it better explains and it better describes and is a better descriptor of the work that we actually do. We are engineers. We work with super systems, and we're in the instructional field. So call me crazy, call us crazy, but I'm really interested in seeing what people think. If you think we're just being silly, then that's okay. You'll never see it here again. But, I think it's got something to talk about.
Absolutely.
I like being an engineer.
And that's the whole point of us coming to you with this, is we really want this to be part of like an engaging conversation.
Yeah.
Put some thoughts in the comments. What are your thoughts on this? And it'll be fun to hash it out and let it marinate and see from a community aspect what people think, how they feel about it.
Yeah. So let's find out. And by golly, just, after 12 years of college, I want to be an engineer. Sorry, folks, but I paid the dues. I can call myself whatever I want to until you catch me. But I really, Denise, think this is descriptive of our work. Even if you take the super system out of it, I do think the gentleman that wrote that book, I think, was on to something. This is instructional engineering because we are engineers by any definition.
Absolutely. Yeah, thank you so much for tuning into this. Please join the conversation. Let us know your thoughts.